All right, folks, please settle in. Well, welcome to my session of databases. I'm Shireesh Thota, Corporate Vice President for Azure Databases. I'm so glad that you could spend time with us today. It's an exciting day for databases. Along with my team, we are so eager to show you so much of innovation that we have cooking for you for the last couple of months, years, whatnot. So you've heard a lot about a lot of innovations in Azure today morning. We're going to go deeper dive into databases. So one thing that you could imagine that being in databases, my team and I spend a lot of time talking to customers. We always want to understand what is that they are trying to achieve, and subsequently, what is that is blocking them from getting to their mission. No matter who they are, what line of business they are in, how mature their lines of business are, or who their customers are in turn, there's one thing that comes up consistently. It is that they need a very strong data foundation. And that's the reason why at Azure we're spending a significant amount of energy in building the right data foundation. It's not just about databases, but it begins with databases. If you need a SQL database, we got it. If you want a differentiated non-relational database, we have it. And if you are looking for an OSS databases, you name it, we have it all. We also have a unified data platform in Fabric, along with a lot of third-party databases and much more. Our data platform is 100% the most comprehensive data platform there is, so you can really go and achieve your ambitions, whatever they may be. Because the truth is, no matter whether you're building the mission-critical application for today or thinking about building the next generative AI application, agentic applications of tomorrow, you have to realize that the data foundation is the one that's going to determine how far you go. We at Microsoft absolutely want you to go quite far as your imagination takes. Every data project starts with a few different components. It could be different projects and different kinds of solutions. But our investments are basically catered towards making sure that all the needs of your data foundations are being met sincerely and very reliably. So we're going to look at 4 key scenarios today. The scenarios will illustrate the investments that we're making in our data foundations are going to reinforce the importance of these of the thing that I have mentioned already, which is the strong data foundation. So let's look at those 4. We're going to start by looking at SQL. SQL is at the heart of modernization migration for any customer. You've already taken a huge bet on it. We're going to show how you can do that, and most importantly, take you along with on our journey towards building the next generational AI applications. We're going to then turn our attention to look at how PostgreSQL is helping build high-valued applications and fast making its way into enterprise applications as well. Then we'll switch gears, looking at how developers and teams who are looking for flexibility and freedom of development really fast without sacrificing reliability with CosmosDB and DocumentDB. And finally, last but not least, we will see how teams who want to build the next generational AI applications need the performance and scale that they want to make sure that they are growing in lockstep with their customer needs. We'll start by looking at SQL. Now, SQL has been there for several decades. Many of our customers depend upon SQL primarily because of how robust the system is. It is battle-tested with tons of security implications, performance features, so many enterprise guarantees that we have. And so you have definitely built many, many mission-critical applications. Fortune 500s, 97% of them depend upon SQL. So we know that the responsibility that we have in terms of making sure SQL continues to progress further is significant. You tell us that you want to make sure that the investments that you've made already need to be honored while making sure there's a path to go to the era of AI. So we've heard you loud and clear. And that's the reason why we have taken our investments very seriously. And I'm going to kick off my announcements by something super exciting. Thrilled to announce the general availability of SQL Server 2025. Now, SQL Server has been there for some time. Every release, of course, is a really good step up. SQL Server 2025, though, is a slightly different kind of a step up. It's the first time we're bringing in AI into the enterprise database solutions. And this is not just an incremental innovation. It is a major leap forward. If you think about how SQL evolved and all the innovations that we've made, you can use the same frameworks, same tools like SSMS, all the languages like T-SQL, of course, support from T-SQL. You could use all of that stuff. Your developers can benefit from it, be productive. You can move the data between Azure and Fabric. You'll see all these capabilities come in a few different form factors. Firstly, we brought in semantic search deeply inside the operational engine of SQL. So which means that you can keep the data where it is, and you can really build agentic applications, Gen AI applications, along with all the goodness that we already have in SQL, be it full text, spatial, all the cool things, now JSON, many other things, in addition to vector types that we have just brought in. Developers will get a lot more out of this addition. You will have support for things such as JSON indexing. You'd have things where you could build the next generational, like event-driven architectures with things such as change event streaming. We have regex support, much more. There's a lot more details here. And we also have one-leg mirroring with Fabric built deeply inside as a first-class feature of SQL 2025. What it means is that the data inside the SQL can grow at the pace that your operational data keeps evolving, and you'll get insights at that pace. Now, we're also not stopping there. We're innovating under the hood as well. We've brought in many of the security constructs. In fact, if you have Arc enabled in SQL Server, you can get the benefits of Entra ID from Azure. We have brought in a lot of innovations that we made in the cloud, packaged it back into on-premises. Things such as optimistic locking, improving your throughput, query optimizations, many more things are available, improved failover reliability as a few of those things that are really important. Now, I can go on and on here, but it's best to hear from a customer. One of the customers who have been working with SQL Server for a long time is Mediterranean shipping company, MSC. So let's see what they have to say about SQL Server 2025.
MSC is the largest container shipping operator in the world. To be able to accomplish all these logistic problems that we solve every single day, we have to rely on a technology pattern. That is why we've been working with Microsoft since many years. In SQL Server, performance, availability, and security are the most important things. With traditional ETL processes, we were getting our data every 6 hours. Mirroring in SQL Server for Fabric helps us to get data in real time into our analytical solution. That is a game changer for us because we can take faster decisions, smarter decisions in near real time.
The change event streaming, the possibility to have push data model in real time, it would be a huge improvement for us, especially for our BI businesses.
In SQL Server 2025, a developer will be able to use JSON within the database, so they will be able to achieve development optimization.
Now, with AI, with vector search, with embeddings, the searching capabilities in the database engine will grow tremendously. SQL Server plays a key role in powering our system. Without it, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Well, there you have it, folks. You heard it directly from a customer who has taken a huge bet on SQL Server for a long time and have adopted SQL 2025. It's heartwarming to hear from such an important customer like MSC. And it's not just them. We already have 10,000 customers who have already tested in preview and have deployed 100,000 plus databases in SQL. And these are a few logos who have already taken a bet on this. Now, I could, again, go on and on, but it's probably best to see all these things in action. To do that, I'm going to call on to stage Priya Sathy, the product leader for SQL. Priya, please come over.
Thank you, Shireesh. Hey, all. I'm excited to talk about the latest innovations in SQL. As you're all aware, the core SQL Server engine is what powers all of our SQL products. Now, whether you're on-prem and trying to build a mission-critical application on SQL Server, or maybe you're trying to modernize into the cloud into Azure SQL, or maybe you want to build a brand new intelligent real-time application with SQL database in Fabric, guess what? You get one consistent SQL experience, and it is fully AI ready, so you can build those applications friction-free, and you can deploy them anywhere, edge, cloud, or Fabric. So in my first demo, I'm going to really walk through AI on the edge and the consistency. So in this demo, I'm a developer at Zava Health, a SQL developer at Zava Health, and my application is helping clinicians with managing patient healthcare. Now, all my critical sensitive data is sitting in the database on-prem. I do not want to move the data out of the database. I want to bring AI to the data. So let me show you what I'm doing in the database. So first of all, I want my application to be robust. So here, I can use features such as optimized locking in SQL 25 that gives me maximum workload concurrency. I can use JSON data type for clinical documents, and I can use the managed instance link for bidirectional disaster recovery replication. I'm in SSMS 22, and folks, GitHub Copilot is built in, helping me every step of the way debug my application query performance. Now let's talk about building those AI capabilities. Straightforward. I use T-SQL language. I define an embedding model that I want to use. I then define a new vector data type to store embeddings. I generate embeddings, and I store it right next to my data. And I can do a vector search. Now these vector searches scale 1 billion rows in under 100 milliseconds. But not only can I do a vector search, that's a built-in function, I can combine with traditional predicates. Folks, I get true hybrid search. What this means is when my users ask questions in natural language like this, I'm going to give them intelligent, relevant results. But folks, it doesn't end there. I can build AI agents in the engine. How do I do that? I take the results of my vector search, add in more patient data, labs, vitals, and then I can send this off to reasoning models. Models can be reached via the invoke REST endpoint stored procedure. Results come back in JSON, and I can take the JSON payload, send it back to the application. That's it. That's an AI-generated care plan for you. Now, let's move on. I'm still the Java developer, but now I'm modernizing my Java corporate applications into the Azure SQL Cloud. Now let's talk through this, like HR, finance applications. I want to bring AI capabilities. Okay, first thing, these applications are built on a 10-year-old SQL Server 2016. I need to modernize this. I enable the SQL Server using Azure Arc, and that's it. I get instantly a database migration assessment report. And it tells me the recommended SQL database is Azure SQL Managed Instance. So I select this target, and then I start migrating data. Now, folks, I don't want any downtime, zero downtime. So I use the real-time replication option through MI-Link. What this does as I start migration is just synchronizes between the on-prem SQL Server and an Azure SQL Managed Instance. And all my users can continue using SQL Server 2016 until I'm ready to do a cutover when SQL MI has been fully hydrated. I stop traffic to the source, and that's all I do. And all my traffic is going to the new Azure SQL Managed Instance. Now, one other thing. My workload is running in production. I need to do performance monitoring. Folks, you have a new unified performance monitoring dashboard that I can use now to say what's going on with my payload. Here I can see a couple of things happening. I can see buffer weights have gone up. I can also see that cumulative weights have gone up. Looks like my workload needs more storage, memory, IOPS. Well, since I'm using the next-gen SQL managed instance, it's performance boosted, I can easily just add more memory, more IOPS, more storage as I need it without adding more cores, which means I keep my costs in control. Now, just like I did in SQL Server 2025, here, folks, in Azure SQL, I can also build AI capabilities using all the built-in functions of vector data type, vector search, vector index, and that was simple, familiar, easy, consistent. Now, one last demo for you. I'm building a brand new app. Now, this is an app that is more patient-facing. It's a mobile app that's going to help patients manage their schedules, appointments. I really want to add AI capabilities in here as well. And for this app, I'm going to choose the SQL database in Fabric. First things, this experience is very familiar to me. I can start by creating a stored procedure, and I can manage my application's transaction processing needs, just like I do in SQL Server and Azure SQL. And I can also add new things. I can create external tables to files that are sitting in Fabric's OneLake, survey files, Parquet files. For AI capabilities, I don't have to do anything different. The same familiar experience. to create embedding models and do vector search. But here, I also have the same Copilot experience that is all built to help me write my queries, debug my performance, so I can get it right. Now, the other thing is, in SQL Server, I care about enterprise security. Just like that, even here, I can use transparent data encryption with customer-managed keys. I can turn on SQL audit logs, just like I've done before in SQL Server and Azure SQL. Now, what about my application developers? They're using Visual Studio Code. And here, you can see if they use the MS SQL extension, they can connect to my database. They can see my tables, columns. They can even see that stored procedure with the vector search that I wrote. But not only that, VS Code also comes with GitHub Copilot. In agent mode, it is going to tell the developers how to write safe SQL, performance SQL, apply indexes, so that I don't have to deal with performance issues later. Lastly, folks, our entire SQL estate is mirrored into Fabric. Because of that, I can now cross-join between my data in SQL Server, Azure SQL, and SQL Database in Fabric to get true analytics. And with that, you've seen a whirlwind tour of one consistent SQL. I would love to bring Shireesh back on stage.
Thank you, Priya. There is so much awesomeness, the density of awesomeness in that demo is too much. There were so many things here. She casually mentioned something that I want to repeat here. We are able to do 1 billion vector search capabilities in less than 100 milliseconds. So you can have 1 billion vectors and we can search anything. You could do a top K kind of a query in less than 100 milliseconds. That's just amazing. And there's so many other things that you talked about. Perhaps, it's important that I just summarize a few of them. SSMS22. SSMS, SQL Server Manageability Studio, is one of the most popular, mostly used DBA tool out in the market. And this is loved by developers, architects, DBAs across the board. It is now generally available, SSMS22. It's 64-bit support, modern installer, amazing upgradability capabilities, auto upgrades, and much more. And in addition, Priya also showed that it comes with GHC, GitHub Copilot. So you could author, reason, edit queries in natural language. SQL Server Migration Assistant is now generally available for Azure Arc. So this helps you assess the readiness of your entire estate. And when it is ready, it migrates to Azure SQL Managed Instance. And speaking of managed instance, the performance-enhanced next-generation version of SQL Managed Instance is generally available. And this one is really special for us. We've been thinking about how to make it easier for people to modernize and migrate their on-premises instance or wherever they are into MI. So we had some really good customer feedback, and we have innovated so much at the storage layer that we had to really rip it apart and basically build a new storage layer altogether, thanks to which we have an amazing performance characteristic, so many other things. You can have as much as 500 databases per instance. It used to be 100. A lot of knobs here, performance across memory, cores, etc. This is really a completely new architecture altogether. Very excited about it. And finally, we've seen how SQL DB in Fabric is really an excellent opportunity for you to think about how to SaaSify the experience for developers. You want the time to value to be shortened in SaaS, and that's exactly what we are offering. More on the SaaS databases, you should go to Amir's session sometime a little later in the afternoon today. So that was all about the announcements. Now, if you're excited about it, I'm pretty sure you'll be happy to hear about SQL Con. SQL Con, we are aspiring to make it a premium data conference for anyone trying to harness the power of SQL Server, Azure SQL, and SQL in Fabric. This is the place for any data professionals to learn about all the latest technical awesomeness from SQL. There are going to be a lot of workshops, and most importantly, it's an excellent opportunity to network with the fellow community members. As you can imagine, we are very excited about bringing in all this coolness. So it's going to be, the inaugural version is going to be between March 16th to 21st in the coming year of 2026. And it's going to be side by side with FabCon. So eager and looking forward to seeing you all there at SQL Con. Another awesome announcement that I'm very excited about, this is a major leap forward for a data community. We are launching a new certification. It's called Azure SQL Developer AI Associate Certificate. So as AI, cloud, and all the new developer platforms have reshaped the way that we are thinking about building applications, we thought it's time to reflect on how to bring SQL community and the developers into this new world and basically recognize for their skills. So this certification is designed exactly to do that. We're going to validate deep skills about programming in SQL, making sure it understands AI integrations, and enabling the data professionals to go build amazing, secure, scalable, and robust data solutions on Microsoft Data Platform. So this certification is also going to be available in the spring and on Microsoft Learn, spring of 2026. So please go ahead, open up your calendars, prepare your certification journey. So that was all about SQL, and this is always going to be an important part because it powers mission-critical applications. When we talk to customers, they also express the desire to have choice. They want to have the right database for the right workloads. And this is where PostgreSQL fits into the picture. And when we engage with our customers and the community to learn about why they love PostgreSQL, a few things that come up quite often. They always tell us that they love PostgreSQL because it's open, it's reliable, and it's already made its way into becoming the choice of database for many of their applications. They love the developer experience that they get from the PostgreSQL offerings and the ecosystem that's out there. But as their workloads grow, as their enterprise needs grow, what ends up happening is that the challenge of scaling and managing becomes harder. It's not easy to keep this kind of an offering reliable all the time and try to make sure that it is cloud native and it's not, you're not spending so much time in terms of squeezing the last ounce of performance and reliability. This is a common thing that we hear quite a lot. And so Microsoft has taken a major bet on PostgreSQL. We have become a committed member in this community. In fact, we have the highest number of committers who work on PostgreSQL, thanks to which, if you want to depend on PostgreSQL's open source code base, if you really want your project to go there, you can trust us. We can support you because we have all the expertise in Microsoft. Thanks to all of that, we are able to commit back to the upstream source code into PostgreSQL. In fact, we've made the most number of commits in the last 3 major releases across versions 16, 17, and 18. So when you have that kind of a support, it's no surprise that we are able to bring the major versions of PostgreSQL on the same day that it's announced in the community. In fact, when PG18 came out a few weeks ago, we got it into Azure on the very same day. We can stand by such kind of a support because of all these investments we are making. We do have a world-class leading offering in Azure already. It's called Azure Database for PostgreSQL. It's also called as a flexible SKU. And this is 100% compatible with PostgreSQL. You get all the major version support, all the extension support. It offers you an amazing flexibility for anybody who's trying to migrate and modernize their PostgreSQL, whether it's on on-premises or in any other cloud. You're welcome to move it to Azure. We really offer you so much of value for your money. You could definitely rely on our community investments, the support that you would get from our committers, and all the expertise that we have. Now, this is great. There's one thing that's still something that comes up quite often. Customers who are looking to have a significant amount of performance and scale, who want a cloud-native solution that can go beyond the traditional limits of a SQL, any relational engine in a box, they want more than just a flexible server in PostgreSQL. We've heard that, and that is why I'm so super thrilled to announce another major version here for PostgreSQL. It's called HorizonDB. This is the first day that we are unveiling this new database into the market. Yes. Yeah, so we're very thrilled, and we've been working very hard in terms of bringing it to the market. So this is really the PostgreSQL that you could rely on, you could bet on your business. Now, what we have done here is basically looked at how PostgreSQL is offered generally in the cloud. We have decoupled the compute and storage. By decoupling it, we get some benefits. We can scale both these layers independently and scale them massively. In fact, we can get you up to 128 terabytes. Just the beginning. We're going to keep increasing it, but right now it's 128 terabytes. As you see, the numbers on the cores here is 3,072 cores. You could have as many as up to 15 read replicas. So you can have your writes going into the primary, but you could have as many 15 read replicas. So you could segregate these workloads differently. And thanks to this novel architecture, we can commit these. We can make these commits really fast. The latency is going to be it's blazing fast. We in fact show up to 3x times more performant than the open source PostgreSQL in a similar kind of a setup. And we have less than 1 millisecond multi-zone latency. This is going to be multi-zonal by default, so you have resiliency built in. So there you have it. This isn't really a Postgres as a checkbox for compatibility. It is something that you could bet on. You could really bring your data foundations onto PostgreSQL, you can make sure that you have all the things that you need, especially when the stakes for building enterprise guarantees go higher and higher up. So, again, I think this is kind of the place where I'd probably need to show you some bits in action. So to do that, I'm going to invite onto stage Charles Feddersen, the product leader for PostgreSQL.
Hi, everybody. So let me show you a quick whirlwind tour of Horizon. I'm going to start, actually, in VS Code. Now, everybody's seen provisioning in the portal before, but now let me show you how you can provision Horizon natively out of VS Code. I'm going to go and add a new server here, and you'll see that we've got 3 choices. Azure Database for Postgres, and now you've got Horizon as well. And if I click through this, you're going to see an almost identical flow to what you're used to in the portal. I've got the server name and regions, a simple slider for vCores, and because I'm logged into VS Code already, I've got my Enter ID enabled by default in Postgres. Now, what's really cool about Horizon as well is what we've done with AI. And with a simple checkbox, you can now enable all of the vector indexing and direct integration to Microsoft Foundry straight out of the box without all of the complex configuration that you may have done previously. Now, let me show you how you convert this into a query. So here, I'll connect to my database, and I've got a toys catalog DB. And I'm going to go and run a new query, and the first thing you'll see is I've got this function to list the models. By checking that checkbox during provisioning, I've got GPT-5, text embedding, and Kohiri ranking automatically registered in my database, and I'm going to be able to reference them using SQL directly. Now, to do that, we use our AI functions. And this is an example of extract, which is going to default to using the GPT-5 model for extraction. And it's actually using a toy catalog, and I can actually also plug in my own BYO model here if I wanted to. And what it's doing is it's doing an extraction of the franchise that the toy belongs to populate that column on the right-hand side, toy universe. It's a really simple example of how you can use AI natively with SQL for data transformation within the database. Performance also key. And so we've released a new version of Microsoft's Disk ANN Victor Index that's optimized for filtering. On the left, I've got the prior version of Disk ANN, so we've basically turned off the advanced filtering feature. And on the right is the Horizon DB version of Disk ANN. If I go ahead and run this query, what you'll see is that on the left-hand side, it used to be a 2-step query. It has a separate order by and filter. But now with the new Disk ANN, this is consolidated into a single operation, and yields significantly better performance. If we scroll down on the right-hand side, you're going to see that that query executes in about 60 milliseconds now, whereas the prior version of Disk ANN, which is already incredibly performant, is about 3x slower, at about 180, 170 milliseconds. So significant improvements in vector search, which really add up at scale. But there's also traditional OLTP processing. And as Shireesh mentioned, we've built a cloud-native storage engine spanning zones. On the left-hand side, we've got open source Postgres with Petroni configured for high availability across zones. And on the right-hand side is native Horizon DB. Everything else is identical, same regions, same zones, even down to the same Intel socket. You can see that open source Postgres supports a little over 4,000 transactions per second, and Horizon DB straight out of the box with PG Bench supports over 9,000 transactions per second. Significant performance boost and throughput when you're running those highly available production workloads. Now, this architecture for Horizon also extends to scaling out replicas over shared storage. So in the portal, I've got a Horizon on the left with 1 replica, and my Horizon on the right has got 3 replicas. And so if we come back to PG Bench again and run a read-only workload over the replicas, you'll see that 1 replica supports about 90,000 transactions per second. And on the right, I'm almost linear, nearly 270,000 transactions per second under a single endpoint load balanced across 3 replicas on a consistent version of the data. So Horizon scales phenomenally as well for read workloads. And sometimes, however, things don't perform. And so we've now got live dashboards implemented natively into VS Code. But once upon a time, you'd see high CPU like this, and you'd crack out your scripts and start debugging. But now Copilot can do it all for you. I simply click on this top right-hand icon, and the chart feeds a very informative prompt to Copilot who gets to work debugging the database. And it goes through all of the exploration of the database. In the lower left-hand corner, you can see the query history, so you've got complete transparency on the queries Copilot issued against your database to debug it. Ultimately, it's concluded that there's an unindexed table, and there's even a problematic query that it's given you that's showing where the CPU consumption is coming from. So we can go ahead and we tell Copilot to go create the index for us. And it's going to run through another sequence of steps where it's creating the index, but what it also does beyond that is verifies that the new query is using the index correctly. And so at the conclusion, it runs the explain analyze. It sees that the index is now being used properly. And as you would expect in a database, when you put the right index in the right place, the CPU drops to a very healthy level again. So we covered a lot here: scale out performance, transactional performance, vector index performance, and all of this wrapped in the VS Code extension. It's in preview today. We can't wait to see what you get started with. Thanks, Shireesh. Back to you.
Well, thank you, Charles. There's again, a lot of goodness here. Let me quickly summarize. You've seen that we are basically making PostgreSQL smarter and efficient by bringing in a curated set of models deeply embedded inside the database. So your developers don't have to worry about stitching hundreds of different things. They can go build the, again, AI-based applications really easily in PostgreSQL. We've also shown how advanced filtering on DiskKNN can help bring in managing both the vector search as well as a regular kind of search into a single operation. So the query engine can really do them not as a pipeline operations, but together as effectively as possible. It's cheaper, more effective. And the PostgreSQL extensions in VS Code, that's a big hit. Ever since we've shipped it only a few months ago, we've already seen almost 250,000 downloads, a significant monthly active usage. There's a lot of feature asks that are coming in. It's fast becoming the go-to tool for anybody who wants to manage PostgreSQL anywhere. Of course, it works the best with Azure, but if you want your PostgreSQL outside, be it on the community version, containers, or whatever, this version really works well and has lots and lots of goodies: the GitHub Copilot, the Entra capabilities, and much more. I don't have time to go through all this stuff, but there's tons of goodness there. Now, Horizon DB is going to be broadly available to everybody early of 2026. But today, we do have a limited participation. We're inviting many of you to basically go apply here. Please go take scan the QR code, go to the URL on the screen here, and please apply and give us your valuable feedback. We're very grateful for you to have a go at it. All right, so PostgreSQL is definitely having its moment. I want to turn my attention, though, to NoSQL. Now, for any developers who are in the business of creating flexibility in the form of maybe dynamic data schemes, multi-tenant applications, or personalizing at real time, the freedom that NoSQL gives is really unmatched. They want to make sure that they can prioritize the ability to use the tool that they like, have the data model that works for them. Sometimes it is structured, schematic, very, very tightly coupled kind of a schema, but sometimes it's schema agnostic. The developers want that freedom, and we want to make sure that we support them. So the freedom makes a lot more sense when it comes with the assurances that your application can stay up and reliable all the time. It can scale, and sometimes it needs to be rooted in the open source tooling, frameworks, and whatnot. And we've heard you very loud and clear. And that is why I'm so super thrilled again to announce the third database here, Azure DocumentDB. This is broadly available today. Yeah, so we've taken what we used to call as the vCore version of Azure CosmosDB for Mongo API, and we basically are bringing DocumentDB to life. So to those who basically have been following DocumentDB, a few months ago, we've donated this DocumentDB. We've birthed the open source project called as DocumentDB. We've donated it to Linux Foundation. So what it offers is basically a complete open source NoSQL offering with the compatibility of Mongo API. The great thing is that it is built on PostgreSQL, but it gives you all of the things that you need from a DocumentDB. We've been investing in this quite hard, and so you have the flexibility for any developers who are looking to have the flexibility of multi-cloud. It can run anywhere, and yet they want the fully managed experience in Azure. Azure DocumentDB is the right answer for you. And it is just not about the open source Mongo compatibility. It brings a lot of differentiation. In fact, we can offer you amazing vector search characteristics amongst many other things. It is very cheap. It is effective compared to Atlas, for instance. We show that we are 40% cheaper than Mongo Atlas in Azure. And if you are a customer of the RU stack in Azure CosmosDB for Mongo, you can seamlessly, without any downtime, migrate to DocumentDB. So there's a lot of goodness here. In fact, fact, we're very thrilled to partner with Kraft Heinz, one of the customers who've taken a major bet here. For them, connectivity with data is everything. It goes from analytics to ingredients. They have this amazing lineage platform. It works well, but it was causing a lot of problems. They were building it on top of a legacy graph engine, a lot of operational overhead, very costly. So they talked to us, and we suggested that they should look at DocumentDB. And ever since we partnered with them, migrated their solution to DocumentDB, and they have saved a ton of money and orders of magnitude query speed up thanks to this move. They're not stopping there. They're definitely improving a lot more on their lineage platform. Very excited that they're rolling it out broadly across multiple teams and much more. So we're very honored that we have customers like that already betting on DocumentDB, again, which is built on complete open source. It's really free, and you could run it in multiple places. It is so good that there are some really cool scenarios that it can entail. And to show all of that stuff, I'm going to invite onto stage Kirill Gavrylyuk, who's a product leader for DocumentDB and CosmosDB, to take on.
Thank you, Shireesh. Hello, hello. This demo is about developer freedom and zero risk. I'm going to show you multi-cloud capability of Azure DocumentDB by leveraging our fully managed DocumentDB service in Azure and open source DocumentDB running in AWS and Google Cloud. Let's take a look. Here I have Azure DocumentDB cluster in Azure Portal. It is connected and replicating to an open source DocumentDB running in AWS using EKS and in Google Cloud using GKS. Now here in DocumentDB VS Code extension, you can see that Azure DocumentDB cluster is the primary, while GCP and AWS are secondaries right now. This cluster is configured for high availability with 3 replicas in Azure and 1 replica each in the other 2 clouds. This cluster is configured for global strong consistency to ensure zero data loss in presence of failure in one of the clouds. On the left, we have 3 connection strings pointing to the DocumentDB cluster in each cloud. However, our application will use 1 global connection string using MongoDB API that automatically points to the current primary. And should we do a failover, it will automatically switch to a new primary, no interventions needed. Now let's start the application. We're going to start writing, and currently writes will go into the primary. But if we take a look at the same test collection in the GCP cluster, we can see, after refreshing, that documents are starting to populate in GCP. Replication is working, and the same is happening in AWS. Because of the strong consistency setting, the application writes are only being accepted if both primary and at least one of the secondaries in one of other clouds accepted the write. This ensures zero data loss in presence of at most 1 cloud failure. Now, let's take a look at Grafana to see where the writes are going. And you can see the green line here is Azure writes going to Azure, the current primary. Now let's induce a failover. We're going to use our DocumentDB Kubernetes operator to promote AWS replica as a primary. This is a planned failover, for example, if we were doing a maintenance operation. But the same thing would happen should we encounter availability loss in the primary, which is currently Azure. And during failover, no intervention is needed for the application. Application will automatically failover, automatically switch writes to the new primary. Here we have in Grafana, back now in blue, we have Azure writes gradually, gracefully drained, and failover occurs, and the new writes are building up in AWS. There was a small blip, after which the availability was automatically restored in AWS as the new primary, and zero data loss thanks to strong consistency setting. So there you have it, a globally distributed DocumentDB cluster across Azure, AWS, and GCP with fast, fully managed failover and zero data loss guarantee. Thank you so much.
Azure is incredibly robust, but just in case, if you need that support for multiple clouds, we got you covered as well with DocumentDB. All right, so we've looked at DocumentDB, but there's one more thing about NoSQL solutions that really is important. We have many customers, probably many of you as well, moving really fast. You want to experiment with different models. You want to launch new features. You want to make sure that you could personalize different customer experiences at a significant pace. And with that speed comes a lot of challenges. You want intelligence in every decision, relevance in every response, and much more. For all that stuff, you need a data foundation that can scale. It understands the agentic applications, and it can really be flexible in terms of how fast you want to go. So that is the reason why we have Azure CosmosDB. Azure CosmosDB, as you probably all know, is a highly differentiated non-relational database. This database is designed explicitly to make sure that we cover all the needs of the era of AI. It has begun its journey before that, but it is designed, it is really custom tailored for that. Why? Well, a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's a NoSQL database, so if you have a schema agnostic kind of a problem, if you want the applications to keep revving up the schemas or want to iterate different ideas really quickly, no problem, because we are schema agnostics in CosmosDB, and it is really designed for that. If you have a situation where you have to go from gigabytes to petabytes seamlessly, now we are horizontally infinite scale kind of a system. It can keep adding as many partitions as you want. It can keep scaling really well without breaking any sweat. If you have a situation where you want to have your data durability guarantees even at the cost of regional resiliency, no problem. We have RPO0 with global strong consistency. We got that. If you want to make sure that your uptime is 5 nines, even when regions go down, again, no problem, because we have something called active-active replication, where multiple regions can write, even if one region is down, no problem. So we got that covered as well. These are all a few reasons, by the way, for why a prolific application like ChatGPT depends on CosmosDB. ChatGPT is just one of the examples. There are many of the customers who depend on it for these specific characteristics. And we're making some serious innovations in making CosmosDB the vector search database. So much so that we have a new announcement here with a high throughput vector search. We can do, once again, less than 100 milliseconds for 1 billion vectors. You see this number come up quite often because we wanted to make sure that we have the right database platform for you to build your next generational AI agentic kind of applications. And this is a database that you could totally bet on. So again, I think it's probably best to hear this from a customer. To do that, I have the immense pleasure to welcome Shivakumar Vaithyanathan, VP of Platform AI Engineering at Adobe. Shiv, welcome here.
Thank you very much.
Shiv, what a pleasure to have you here. Perhaps to begin with, if you could introduce yourself and tell us what Adobe is doing, what's your line of work at Adobe, perhaps paint that picture, please.
First of all, thank you very much, Shireesh, for having me here. So being on stage over here with you reminds me a little bit of what I do every day at Adobe. We help brands have one-on-one conversations with their customers. There is an audience today, but I am not talking quite the same way to them as I am talking to you. And that's exactly what brands want to do. Have these one-on-one conversations with individuals so that it is just them and you in that one room. But to scale this in a way in which it can be done to millions, the brands need to make millions of decisions every single second. They need to figure out who to talk to, when to reach out, and how to do it in a way that feels truly personal. And because it quickly adds up, a lot of our customers have millions of customers themselves. It quickly adds up, and we end up making billions of decisions every single day.
It's a noble mission, and I'm pretty sure it's a very difficult one, especially for the data engineering aspects of it. I know that you depend upon Azure databases, thank you so much, and you also run a lot of your applications on CosmosDB. Perhaps if you could just dive in a little bit as to how CosmosDB kind of surfaces in this solution.
So, as you know, you've been working with us for several years now. CosmosDB is the workhorse for this personalization at scale. Across thousands of our customers today, we manage about 35 billion consumer profiles. And for these 35 billion consumer profiles, we end up delivering hundreds of billions of engagements in real time. Adobe and Microsoft together, we are making this personal interaction and personalization at scale truly personal.
Wow. Now, that's remarkable, and I'm pretty sure, again, this is not an easy task when you have that kind of an engagement here. When you're talking about this, one of the things that really comes to my mind, and a lot of customers talk to me and ask me this, they have a situation where they have multiple tenants, and they want to ensure that every tenant is secure. It basically has all the performance that each tenant needs, but it comes at the cost. They are worried that it's very pricey, let alone all the challenges of managing fleets of such accounts, really a significant number of things that they need to go look into and all that stuff. You run one such platform. That's exactly the kind of problem that you look at, and you've dealt it very successfully with. Could you talk us through as to how you basically went about solving that?
Absolutely. So, very true. Okay. To give you a little bit of a perspective on the scale that we deal with right now, we run about 10,000 CosmosDB active accounts, one for each customer environment. Now, because of the nature of our business, we have to handle these pretty significant events like Super Bowl Sunday or Black Friday, and these are spread out during the year, and they have for individual customers. We cannot afford to have all the, and during those days, the volume goes up an order of magnitude. So we therefore cannot have all CosmosDB accounts throttled to the highest level. If we did that, it would be untenable. Okay? That's exactly where CosmosDB Fleet comes into play. With CosmosDB Fleets, we are able to go ahead and manage our capacity across these thousands of databases that we manage in the backend, making sure that we have full security isolation, which is critical for us. At the same time, be able to manage the performance and making sure it is cost effective. Particularly in this fast data world that we live in personalization, where AI, particularly with AI right now, CosmosDB Fleet allows us to be able to do this in real time.
That's great to hear. Cosmos Fleets is the answer, folks. Whoever asked for me for the security as well, performance as well as the cost effectiveness, while making sure it's easier to manage. So, you've covered a lot of ground here. Thank you so much, Shiv. So, perhaps, now at this point, if you could tell us what's next, where is Adobe headed towards, and what's your vision?
We, like you and everybody else, want to provide AI-driven experiences to all our customers. Okay? And as part of these AI-driven customer experiences, we believe that conversation is the way to go. And for this one-on-one personalization that we provide with consumers, the conversation-driven is not just only for consumers, it's also for marketers on the platform. And therefore, we are working with Microsoft today to bring Adobe Marketing Agent to Copilot 365, and there'll be more of that announcement here in the particular conference.
Thank you so very much, Shiv. You're really a pleasure to have you here and explain all these things directly. Hearing from your customer like you and hearing from such a great scenario from such a great company like Adobe is definitely very helpful for us. So please, folks, please put your hands together. Give Shiv a good applause here. Thank you, Shiv. Thank you. All right, so I know we are a little bit over time here, but there's an important demo that I really want you to take a moment to watch this. So I'm going to invite Deborah Chen to put all these things in action and show us what we can do here with Cosmos.
Cool. Thank you so much, Shireesh. All right, so you just heard Adobe uses Azure CosmosDB to deliver real-time personalization to its customers. Let's see how Azure CosmosDB Fleets enables Adobe to achieve full performance and security isolation while keeping costs per customer low. To achieve security isolation, Adobe stores data for each of its customers in a separate CosmosDB account, often protected with a customer-managed key. Now let's take a look at the traffic pattern for these accounts. Looking into this, we see that different accounts have magnitudes of RU consumption spike at different times. For example, during a sales promotion, but only a few accounts actually spike at the exact same time. This kind of traffic pattern is a great fit for fleet pooling. To illustrate this concept on a few accounts, we've got 4 accounts here that are all spiking to their peak at different points in time. But if we scroll over to look at the cumulative usage at a given single point in time, it's only about 38% the sum of all of the peaks. This is where pooling can help close the gap. Instead of keeping all resources scaled and provisioned to the max all of the time, which would be expensive, we can use fleet pools that share throughput capacity across all of the resources. This keeps our cost per account and tenant low, but we get to maintain full security isolation. Let's go ahead and try it out with a fleet. So creating a fleet is super easy. I just have to give it a name. Now, in this fleet that I have here, you can group similar types of accounts or customers with similar traffic patterns into a fleet space. That's where you configure the throughput pool that will be shared across them. Here, for example, I've grouped my enterprise customers together and given them up to 1 million RUs of throughput for best possible performance. Adding an account to a fleet space is also super easy. Just select the fleet space, hit accounts to add, and hit add. And that's it. Once the accounts are added, they'll automatically start consuming from the pool. You get better performance as resources that need more throughput can get it from the pool, but you avoid over-provisioning. Now finally, we can also use Fleet Analytics and Microsoft Fabric to monitor and analyze the performance of our fleet at scale. I can connect my fleet to stream usage data to a Fabric workspace and use that data to answer questions like, which of my accounts are the largest or most active? Or do I have any optimization opportunities for my accounts, for example, such as these empty ones right here? With Fabric and Fleet Analytics, it's really easy to understand the behavior of thousands of resources at scale, even when I'm running at Adobe scale. So there you have it. You've just seen how Azure CosmosDB Fleets can enable you to build highly performant, secure, and cost-effective multi-tenant applications. Thank you so much. Back to you, Shireesh.
Thank you. Bring this all home here. I know there's a lot of announcements that we've seen for CosmosDB, and there's a ton of things. We haven't just even touched the surface area. So please do go to our blogs. You have a lot more details there. Please take a look at that. So there you have it, folks. I just want to recognize that bringing a single database to market is incredibly hard. For all the folks who have been working with databases, you understand the challenge of bringing to a database to a market. So my team told me that that's not a challenge enough. We're going to do 4, right? And that's exactly what we have shown you here today. We've shown you how SQL 2025 is entering into the era of AI while preserving all the enterprise goodness. We brought Azure HorizonDB, a cloud-native PostgreSQL designed to have all the OSS goodness, but making sure that you really can build the enterprise applications on PostgreSQL, thanks to all the goodness that we have, including all the community supports that we have. Same thing with DocumentDB. It's a complete open source NoSQL system with Mongo compatibility, so you could really go do multi-cloud, whatever you want to do with any of your documents APIs. It's been the first time since we never have an anti-SQL version of it in the NoSQL world. We got that covered for you as well. And we are bringing in both SQL and CosmosDB to Fabric today and generally available. And we are going to bring in PostgreSQL, HorizonDB in particular, to Fabric as well in the coming few months as well. So on behalf of the entire team today, I thank you all for your time. Really happy that you could spend some time and understand our innovations. I really hope that you take some inspiration from these solutions and take it back to your teams, your customers, and whatnot. There are a lot of great sessions ahead in this conference. I really hope that you do join us to deep dive on many of the things that we just barely touched here. Thank you all.